What is non-negotiable for you? What will you resist until your dying day?
I will resist to my dying day the notion that the Irish people need an English government to rule us. I will resist to my dying day that the Irish in some way are genetically imperfect.
So no matter what the people of Northern Ireland, vote for in any referendum in which just the people of Northern Ireland vote, you would not respect that as long as they said we vote for.
Well, first of all, that isn't the basis on which the English government is in my country. The English government is in my country on the basis of an act of that Parliament, and that Parliament, because it's the supreme body in the English or British constitutionality, can undo that act tomorrow if it wished. Now, having said that, of course, I recognise the difficulties that we have a partitioned Ireland, we have a contrived situation, an artificial statelet, but there are 5 million people in the island of Ireland, and 900,000 of them are unionists. So, of course, we have to win the unionists. We have to win the consent of the unionists. We have to, as John Hume and I pointed out in our very first statement,
right,
we have to have agreement and participation, and what we want to do threatens no one.
What's the next step?
Next step is more talking, proper talking, breaking of all bans on conversation and dialogue with all the parties. Then as quickly as possible, both governments leading all of the parties into inclusive peace talks to find agreement on a peace settlement.
How do you think it will unfold? How will that happen?
Well, I don't think that any single one of us in either Ireland or Britain can tell how it moves forward. It's a learning process. In many ways, we're making it up as we go along. I think we would look to the continued active support of President Clinton to help our efforts.
To do what?
To get multilateral discussions going, to get both governments locked into that process, leading the way, to get the British government especially to live up and fulfill its responsibilities. The British government cannot wash its hands of 800 years of involvement in our country. It was part and remains part of the problem. It has to be part also of the solution. Also, we need to be, when we get a peace settlement, we need to, as we build stability, we need to be building prosperity. We need to get economic investment going. We need to get, as I've said earlier, a transformation of Irish society underway. And all of that, I am quite sure, if you want really to know what is required in Ireland, it is what has been required everywhere where conflicts have been brought to democratic solutions. That is goodwill, a willingness to compromise, and a total commitment to talking.
Disarmament, again, as I mentioned earlier, seems to be the issue that keeps the direct talks from taking place.
Well, Charlie, can I say this now? I'm sorry, I should have perhaps told you this earlier. Today at the National Press Club in Washington, I was able to announce that the Sinn Féin delegation back home in Ireland, which is led by my colleague Martin McGuinness, have been able in the last few days to move to a position with the British officials where they're now discussing agendas for talks between our people and the ministers. And that is a substantial step forward. We still haven't agreed on an agenda, but we're at least at the point now where we're discussing an agenda for those talks. So it looks like we're going to move into yet another phase of the peace process.
So the next step is, the steps taking place now is a discussion of the agenda for talks.
Yes, we have been involved in bilaterals with civil servants for some short time. We're now about to move into, I hope, sooner rather than later, talks between policymakers, ministers, and our delegation.
Do you think it would make a difference if Tony Blair was Prime Minister and not John Major?
Well, we have to live with the British Prime Minister that we have. I know that a change of Prime Minister will not change the nature of the problem. I would hope that Mr. Major will not squander this opportunity for peace. If he's there, I would be pleased to work with him.
But your judgment of squandering the opportunity is withdrawing all the British troops from Northern Ireland.
No, it is not. That obviously is an objective. That is an objective. Squandering the moment for peace is to in some way be distracted or diverted, to be in some way cowed or intimidated by those who don't want peace, and to move away from the necessary job of talking about a peace settlement.
How long, in your judgment, will this take, this process? Is it 3 decades, 4 decades? How long will it take to get to a point where disarmament is in fact taking place, and in fact there is
well,
some...
I would, in 3 or 4 decades, even if I'm allowed to live my natural span, I would not be able to savour the joy of living in a free and independent Ireland. So I certainly would have a very, very clear ambition to live in that type of situation. I think how we can make peace and change inevitable and irreversible is by going through that process of talks, which I outlined. Really, you know, the British and the British policy in Ireland and the guarantee to the Unionists are the core at this time to the difficulties which face us. I think if the British government can face up to their responsibilities, that we can do business with the Unionists. So the process, while it may take some time to actually have a healing process, a process of national reconciliation, the process of changing our society can happen much sooner than many people would think. And we need to have a very high expectation of that. We have the ability to go into this next millennium in a free Ireland, in an Ireland new and agreed between all sections of our people.
Yeah. A couple of questions about the President and John Major. I assume the President, I think, is going to speak with John Major over the weekend. Has he alluded to you, the rift between this government, the United States government, and the British government over your visit here, and the President shaking your hand, and the fact that you've been welcomed at the White House when a year ago you couldn't even get in the country?
No, and I think that's been very much overplayed by the British, and I note that the British are now saying that indeed sometimes friends fall out, but that's been repaired. I think that's a sensible approach, and I welcome that. What
do you owe the President of the United States? What is your responsibility to him because of what he's done to move this process along?
Well, I think that all of us have a debt to each other. The desire for peace is international, and if your President did anything, he showed his commitment, his core conviction on that universal demand for peace. So I think all of us owe each other the debt and the need and the requirement to work unceasingly for peace, and that we will not be satisfied until we have a lasting peace in Ireland, among the people of Ireland, and among the people of Ireland and the people of Britain.
Would we be where we are now without President Clinton?
We would not have come as far as we have, as quickly as we have, without the President of the USA.
All right. Gerry Adams, thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again here in New York when you're back in the United States to update us on how this process is going. Thank you very much.
Okay, Charlie, thank you, and good luck to you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day again.
And to you too.
When we come back, Gerry Lewis is here. Stay with us.